All right. What's up, Svendsen listener? Just want to give a little intro to tell you a little bird's eye view of where we're heading. And we're kind of back on track with things, man. Getting some good content to you. Tell you some things that are coming up. We've talked some parenting stuff, given that's the current season in my life, and a book that I'm really enjoying that I talked about on an earlier episode. We're getting that author, Kenneth Wilgus, author of Feeding the Hand That Bites You, onto the show, and can't wait for my wife and I to kind of pick his brain, given that we are entering being parents of an adolescent. Going to bring Logan and Jared back on to talk about some old school music discoveries. I'm actually pretty excited because we're talking about just how much punk has influenced and informed music to this day, and we even batted around the thought of the metal scene in the 80s, the hair band, the makeup, and the spandex, and all of that being influenced by punk. And that's a tough one to believe, considering the drastic departure of vibes for a music scene. And yet I was listening to some Aerosmith and heard some major punk influences, so I want to talk about that with these guys. And also, we've been talking a lot about universalism and what the Bible says and doesn't say about it, and whether or not you can make a case for it. And that's been a topic of discussion for a while, and it's been cranked up recently. So we're going to bring Dan Koch on here, friend of part of BadChristian, and he actually leans in the way of universalism. And so he's going to take some of me and Toby's thoughts on a recent episode and definitely enhance the universalism argument and shoo away all of the opposition, and also highlight the questions of things we just don't know. And then Chris Date will kind of do the opposite. Podcast host of Rethinking Hell, definitely does not see the Bible or God expressing himself in universal love terms, and will definitely bat against that and fine-tune the arguments opposing that. But those will be some good conversations. We've got a couple on here that's going to come and share their experiment with trying to have more sex in their marriage. Both of them compliant in this and wanting to do this, and I'm anxious to hear how that went and what they learned, and it sounds like they're going to be gearing up to try it again. So lots of fun on here, lots of good stuff coming up. If you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/PWNApod, and we appreciate you guys listening. I want to tell you quickly about this episode that you're listening to. Caught up with a longtime listener of the BadChristian podcast family, and kind of kept up with his profile every once in a while, where he would like a tweet here and there, and thought it was interesting. Baseball player, from Alabama, our arch rivals, and someone who's making his way up the totem pole, one step away from the majors. Wanted to catch up with him. We had a good conversation on just the safety that we think that we're in when it comes to God's love and seeking out truth. And so hope you enjoy that conversation. Before we do that, I want to let you in on something that I've been thinking about, as far as not only the safety that we have in seeking truth, but also the sort of camaraderie that we have with other Christians that we may feel very distant from, very different from. So this is specifically to people that are looking at truth through Christian lenses. That's how we were brought up, or that's what we discovered later in life. However it describes you, lots of Christians that are changing and feeling more and more different, and that's fine. I mean, not the end of the world. But while you are with people you feel different than, maybe we can ask ourselves, maybe we're a lot more similar than we think. So I want to ask, because in Christianity, aren't we all looking for the same truth? We all want, I think, more glimpses of God, and we all have gone our way to get there. Some of our path was based on our decisions, some had nothing to do with us, but yet the things that were taught to us and given to us. But all of us are on a real path with real limitations of discernment. There's a lot of bad turns you can take along the way. I've taken them, you've taken them, but who gets to say who's more where they're supposed to be than others? I mean, how in the world are we supposed to determine that? Isn't all of our aim to find freedom, truth, meaning, purpose, safety, hope. Like, I think that's what we're after. We all suspect this is found mysteriously in the person of Jesus, who supernaturally represents God in a way that we have no words to speak of. We try, but we can't describe the infinite. And everyone's scrambling to make sense of who Jesus said that he was. How is he fully man and fully God? I mean, N.T. Wright, an author that a lot of us at Seacoast chew up his work here, and that's in a good way, like chew and digest and think about. But he even asks, like, it puts into question how knowledgeable Jesus was of his own divinity. And I'm sure we've all got some things right and we've all got some things wrong, but at the end of the day, aren't we together in our pursuit? I think we are. I'm not saying there aren't examples of major getting off the tracks. I'd say many expressions of faith may need to be abandoned altogether. Some of them definitely do need to, especially in settings which love seems to be the very last priority. I think there's pockets that have gotten off track in their desire for certainty in the spiritual world of uncertainty. Still, in other communities of faith, for instance, things started out about God probably, but because we're all dumb humans, it took a turn into being a thing that has nothing to do with God or faith or love or any of that. But yes, I believe God is opposed to many folks who think they are with God and they're still loved, but their efforts aren't sanctioned, so to speak. I think there's probably faith expressions that God is like, yeah, I don't have anything to do with that, and at the end of the day, I'd love for it to be done. But by and large, we're all dummies looking for the truth. I'm fully convinced that outside of some strange exceptions, this is absolutely the truth that we can take heart in, that we are all well-intentioned dummies. We're all fumbling around. We're all trying to make sense out of all of this, and we all want purpose. And I think we're all together in this. Enjoy my interview with Ben Moore. Nice. All right, so what's your current career status? Like, I don't understand. Like, so my thing about baseball is I really respect it. I get intrigued by the history of it. Like, if you put a documentary on Red Sox and Yankees, like, I'm glued. So I really like the history behind baseball, but I don't really follow it. I'll watch the World Series a little bit here and there if it's on, if it's exciting, but I don't understand how the minors and the majors work. I know we've got a Charleston team called the Charleston River Dogs that feeds into the Yankees, I'm pretty sure. So you, played for Alabama in college, and now you're in the majors or minors, or what? Like, what's your current track here?
So right now I'm a backup catcher in AAA with the Dodgers.
What's AAA?
AAA is the level right below the big leagues.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, starting from the top, you get the major leagues, AAA, AA, single A, and single A split into advanced single A and regular single A, and then there's rookie ball. So there's a lot of levels to it. And, I mean, to be honest, until I got into it, I wasn't sure how it all worked. So, it's kind of a confusing thing. But, yeah, so I'm AAA with the Dodgers, living in Oklahoma City right now, and
So are you playing with the guys in the major leagues, like for practice, or how does that work? Or is this a separate Dodgers team?
I mean, it's affiliated with the Dodgers, and like there's guys on my team who have been up and down to the big leagues this year. Like, they'll get called up, they'll go pitch, or they'll go play, and then they'll get sent back down. It's so, like, the way it is, like, each major league team has a farm system of teams underneath it, and those teams feed into the big league team.
Gotcha. So you at this point in your career, would you say you're right where you want to be?
Yeah, so just to give a little backstory. So I was drafted by Boston in 2014 and played 3.5 years with them. Tore my ACL one time in there. Spent the last
AAA? Is that AAA?
No, so I was actually in Greenville, South Carolina, in low A when I did that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and so I actually played in Charleston, played against the River Dogs one time. So anyway, I was with Boston for about 3.5 years. Went to play for an independent professional team, which is like minor league baseball, but it's not affiliated with a major league organization.
Right.
Tore my ACL again last July. I decided to hang it up, go back to school, and kind of move on to the next thing in my life. And then while I was back in school in Tuscaloosa this spring, I got a call from the Dodgers to come help out and be a backup catcher. And come to AAA. So I jumped at that opportunity, and now I'm
Was
just.
that like big deal? Like, were you super pumped? Like, that's an opportunity, a phone call everybody wants in your position.
Oh
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it was because especially since I had hung it up and decided to be done.
Yeah.
It was just kind of out of left field. You had no idea it was coming, and then having that opportunity, like even because like in the Dodgers organization, there's a lot of good players, and like where I'm at in my career, I'm more kind of looking to transition into maybe coaching
Yeah.
or things of that nature. So even if playing isn't on the horizon, being able to get into coaching and maybe work for the Dodgers in the front office or do something like that, I'm kind of just keep my mind open. I really don't know what exactly I want to do, but I'm in a great spot.
Yeah, totally. Gosh, so that's pretty cool though. It sounds like you want a career in baseball, so that's your aim. I mean, that's cool.
Yeah, right now I think that's what I want to do. I may change my mind tomorrow. I'm pretty fickle.
Yeah, totally. Like how at the level of play that you're in right now, are you married or have kids or anything?
Nope, I'm single.
Gotcha. So at the level of play you're in right now, would you be able to have a family and keep with this lifestyle and income and all that? You don't have to give me specifics, but just curious, like, does this support a family where you're at right now, or it's really best for single people?
It's tough. I mean, I've got a lot of guys on my team who are older, 28, 29, 30. And a good bit of them are married. A few of them have, newborn kids. But it's tough, because you're not making a whole lot of money.
Yeah.
You could, like I said, guys are getting called up. So you may be in Oklahoma City today, and then you're in LA tomorrow, and then you got to come back. So like, having to worry about living situations and all that. So, I mean, it's tough. You can have a family, but I know for me personally, it's not something I'd be interested in doing right now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think about like the traveling pressure on Major League Baseball players, and I can't, especially with how long the season is. I'm like, how do you have a decent family life? I mean, I'm sure some of them pull it off, but that's got to be super challenging. I mean, is there a secret, like, for example, there's a secret kind of Olympic culture when the athletes go out there, it's like, what stays at the Olympics or what's done and said in the Olympics stays there, just like Vegas sort of thing. Is there like a secret culture in the baseball world that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of as far as just party scene and all that sort of thing? Or they keep a tight leash?
Guys definitely go out and, have their good times. And then there's people who have different relationship rules with their spouse or girlfriend, but it's a very small minority. It's not like I wouldn't say it's like this huge thing where most guys are out doing stuff like that. It's it's really not too different from your average Joe in the way they handle their business though.
Yeah, totally. All right, so take us, you said when you started listening to BadChristian, it was kind of I think how you said it, deconstruction phase. So has BadChristian contributed to your deconstructing, or was it kind of like a breath of fresh air, like you were already having some of these thoughts and questions and this gave almost like a foundation for you to process them? Or kind of walk us through your relationship with the podcast. And it may just be super shallow, you love the dick and fart jokes and moving on about your business,
So I mean, like I grew up in church, kind of like y'all's history, and like coming up through high school, I was like your prototypical leader of the youth group kid, like didn't swear, didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do anything. And then I got to college and started drinking a little bit, and just kind of growing up in like this legalistic my parents were great, but it was very like avoid the appearance of evil, don't do anything wrong,
right.
can't hurt your witness, all that stuff.
Right.
And so that stuff just kind of stopped making sense to me. Like I started seeing people who were avoiding the appearance of evil and just being total assholes.
Right.
And then I started seeing people who were at the bar loving on people. And I was like, hold on a second, like something's not adding up. So like, that's when it started kind of unraveling for me.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of a 2 or 3 year, just like all these doubts and questions started popping in my head. And then, started listening to you guys, and y'all started putting words to the thoughts I was having.
Right.
And like, you would say something, I'm like, holy shit, that's exactly what I've been thinking. Yeah. And honestly, like, not to sound cheesy, but you guys give me like the courage to like actually step out and say, okay, let's actually question God on this. Like, is this really how it is? Like, kind of got rid of that fear of, like you talked about, like, you didn't want to question because you were scared if you were wrong, you'd go to hell. Like I had that same fear. Like, well, even though this stuff doesn't make sense, like, is it worth my eternal conscious torment? Like,
yeah, totally.
So, but you guys
like, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you guys gave me the courage to kind of like step out and actually say, like, all right, if God is good and like He is truth, then me questioning this is it's only going to lead me to God and to the truth.
Right, definitely. It's almost like a mob mentality, modified almost. It's like when you run into other Christians, even if it's one or two, but you can tell that they have really thought about things in a very genuine, humble approach of just wanting to know what's the truth. And then they come out with like extremely well thought out, honest, really good insight on the Bible. It kind of stops you in your tracks, and it's like, oh, okay, well then it's okay for me to have these questions too, because my gosh, this dude's obviously not trying to debunk Christianity. It seems like that he or she is holding on to their faith for dear life, and here's what they make out of it right now. I mean, it's interesting how that works out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, like, because I know on social media you'll see fundamentalists and people who question you guys, like you're trying to lead people astray. But like you said, you're genuinely trying to find truth. You're genuinely going to God and the Bible with these questions, like, because you want to know the truth, not because you want to debunk Christianity. But It's hard for people to see it that way. They see you're saying something outside what they believe in their little box of what Christianity is. And it's like they hit the panic button. It's just totally ruled by fear. And I guess it all comes back to people being afraid to go to hell or something. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you worded it too. Is like, if God is really loving, then we can actually trust Him as we're seeking truth. I mean, I've thought about this before, and it's like if I were to stand before God, if that's how it works, stand before Jesus or in front of the throne of God, I seriously could not imagine it going poorly for me. Like with what I know, with what I've read, with what I understand about God, and with who I know I am as a person, the good and the bad, I can't imagine how the dialogue would be if it ended in God saying, "Depart from me, I never knew you." Because I would seriously be like, yeah, but I asked you for the truth. Like you said, asking you shall receive. I sought the truth my whole life, and I didn't want to stray. I even asked you, God, Lord, keep me on the right path. And it's like, we've reduced God to like this robotic machine-like character that is totally impersonal, that almost looks like instead of looking at a human's heart, he or she looks at a spreadsheet and says, accepted or non-accepted because of how I know the formulas work. And it can't be that way. Not if God is a personal God who really does love, care about people, is slow to anger, has mercy. I think in the Old Testament it even says that He knows the intentions of our hearts. So what's the point of knowing people's intentions if you don't take that into consideration? I mean,
no, you're exactly right. And I've had that same exact thought. It's been reduced to make sure you check the right box, and that idea of God stopped making sense to me, to where like even if I wanted to try to go back and believe that way, I don't think I'd be able to.
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting too. We were just talking on a Daily Dose BC episode, and we're talking about how easy it is to feel a level of guilt also when you start to reflect on how evangelicals see you. Like if you start having these questions and you start being honest and open about them, all it takes is one person calling you and basically saying, "Hey, what in the world is going on? Like, are you okay?" And these thoughts are motivated by a genuine concern about your soul going to hell. And so when you hear an evangelical talking to you like that, it almost like sucks you back into their world. And if you're not careful, you really do start to think, oh, shoot, am I on thin ice? Like, am I on my way to hell? Am I leading people astray? And then I have to go back to these sorts of thoughts that you articulated, as far as I have to be able to trust God while I'm seeking. Like, I'm not trying to school God. I'm not trying to dethrone God. I'm trying to find God. So if God is love, I should be able to trust that, especially, I'm freaking preaching now, for crying out loud. But especially when Jesus says, I'm sending you the Holy Spirit for this very purpose. It's like, I'm sending you the Holy Spirit for this purpose, and here I am seeking God more than anything else. I think I could go so far as to say I seek God more than anything else. And if Jesus is saying, yeah, and I'm giving you the Holy Spirit in order to do that, shouldn't I be able to guess right now, Ben, that where Joey Svendsen is at, I think I'm okay with it. The right and wrong. Like, I'm sure I'm wrong on some things. I'm sure I'm right with some things, but I should at least feel safe with God, right?
Yeah. I mean, if God is as loving as they say he is, you would think so.
Right. And if he's not, then we're all screwed.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're exactly right. And like that was for me when I was in, I guess, the darkest spot of my deconstruction, where I was to the point where like I don't even know if I believe in the Christian God. Like, I'm pretty sure there's something bigger out there. Right. I don't know what it is. And so my prayer just became like, I don't know what truth is, but if you're truth, lead me to you. And if you're not truth, then I'd like to know that too. Yeah. Whatever the truth is, that's what I want to know. And I feel like God led me to himself and has shown me new things about himself and kind of, I think as human beings, we're always going to have God in some sort of box, but I feel like he has taken himself out of this little box I used to have him in and put him in a much bigger box where I'm just I'm not putting any rules on God. I'm not holding him to any sort of preconceived notions. Like, whatever God is, I'm going to let God show me that.
Totally. I'm going to make a guess here too. I bet, because I think you and I can probably relate to one another a lot with the thoughts and processes of where we're at and how we got where we're at. But I bet you will be enjoying your career a lot more just from the standpoint of the people you rub shoulders with, the people you have fun with, cut up with, how you perceive people, and all of that having gone through some of this deconstructing.
Oh, for sure. No, there's no doubt about it. And it's funny because you come across guys in baseball who are like super Christians, I guess you could say. And like, they're not bad guys, but they're very legalistic. And they don't have many friends on the team because it's like, how are you supposed to love on people when you piss everybody off because you're an asshole?
Yeah.
And so where there are guys from all walks of life, there's guys who don't believe in God. There's guys who have even just crazier beliefs about God. Like, because of going through deconstruction and realizing like it's okay to be wrong about things. It's also like, because of where I came from and realizing I was wrong at certain points in my life, whether I'm right or wrong now, like I was given grace for those bad beliefs. Yeah. And so now I can just be graceful and let other people believe what they want to believe and let God take them on that journey. It's not my job to try to convince anybody of anything or convert them. Whereas, growing up in high school, like every chance I could to try to pray for someone to tell somebody about Jesus because I was scared they're going to go to hell. Like, that was what I did, but it was all fear-based. It was never out of love. And so this deconstruction has kind of allowed me to be able to just love people for who they are and where they're at and not try to push them on into anything.
Yeah, totally. And I think what a lot of people, I'm surprised the number of people that I run into that legit ask, hey, what does deconstructing mean? I don't even know. Like, because they haven't been a part of the conversation at all. And I think the best way that I can answer that is deconstruction happens once you start being honest about things that you're confused about. Like, once you are willing to be honest about that and you're not afraid of God about it, then there's no other way to go, I don't think.
You're exactly right. And I think for a long time, the reason I kind of held back from deconstruction, like you said, I was afraid. Like, if I follow these questions down this rabbit hole, like, where's that going to take me? Is it going to take me to hell? But then I got to the point where, like, one, I'm kind of where you are on the whole annihilationism / universalism. I don't know for sure, but like, I don't believe in eternal conscious torment. Right. So like, when I got to that point, it was kind of easy. It was like, all right, like, I don't think God's going to punish me for being sincere and truthfully questioning these things that just don't make sense anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, dude, it's always good kind of touching bases with people that we see profiles of and see retweets and see in the club and all that stuff, and to kind of get to know the person behind it. And then for me personally, it's always encouraging to talk to people in similar pathways and all that stuff, because it really is something about feeling less alone. Like, I think it's why Paul mentions, either Paul or Peter says something about, when you're going through trials, don't forget the people around the world that are going through the same thing. I think he says that because there is something to knowing that other people are going through that and being comforted by it. So I think these conversations are great for that purpose alone. But great catching up with you, man, and good luck on your baseball career, coaching, wherever God takes you, my man.
I appreciate it, Joey, man. Yeah, this has been cool talking to you.